Hi everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I've made it out on a really misty, foggy morning over to Danbury Common to try and hone my skills into some woodland photography. I've obviously been taking a lot of coastal photography recently on my trip down to Cornwall, and I really need to sort of hone my skills again back in the woodland. I haven't been able to do as much woodland photography as I would like of late, and today with the conditions that actually are better than predicted on the weather app, yeah, it was flitting and changing, and I thought, oh well, yeah, I've got a free morning, no commitments with the family as such on a Saturday morning, so I need to make the most of actually coming out. And yeah, luckily enough today the conditions are looking really quite good. The only problem though with the conditions is that it is going to be low cloud and pretty thick low cloud, so it's going to mean that there's really going to be no sunrise colours at all, unfortunately. So no sort of golden misty colours unfortunately in these images. It's going to be very dark, it's going to be very moody, but I'm super excited to be out, so let's have a look at what I come up with. First image set up here with the camera in vertical orientation of, I believe it's an oak tree, but work out really lovely with obviously the mist and fog that we've got this morning, and that obviously diffused background. It really does obviously pay to have these conditions when you're in the woodland, because it really does make the images a lot more simple. If the fog wasn't there, then you've obviously got the trees in the background and it can quite easily merge into sort of one sort of generic image. But with obviously the mist, it does add a lot of separation, as a lot of other photographers have mentioned. So settings for this camera, I've got it on is about 80 odd mil on the lens, f11 as normal, ISO 50, and dialing in the shutter speed of about half a second, 0.6 of a second. Yeah, just obviously balancing the histogram as best you can, apart from realising that the camera was all set up in a completely different way, and I hadn't reset it to manual mode completely, and realised that with the first image that I took, the ISO was still on auto, and it was a completely grainy image, and I thought, it's not that misty there, but anyway, yeah, obviously realised what I've gone wrong there. But what fantastic conditions. Whether or not the mist is due to it actually increase, so whether or not it's actually going to penetrate further into the trees, who knows. But there's several sort of lone trees here as such, with a reach of the lens I hopefully will be able to pick out. The other thing I'm thinking about this composition is where I've obviously got the image set up of the whole tree itself, I may crop right in and obviously just pick out a little bit of detail within it. Because one of the photographers that I've been following for quite some time, Jamie Overland, who obviously I met on, or virtually met on the pubcast when I did that, it takes a lot of woodland photography, as you possibly most of you would follow him, and watching his woodland photography, it's really helped me to take a lot from that and hopefully put it into my woodland photography. And what I mean by that is looking at other photographers' techniques, other photographers' skills, and then trying to replicate that to some degree in your own way, and adding in then your own style to it as well. But one thing that he does do, and I really do like about his photography, is he does use his long lens a lot to pick out selective areas of an image. Unfortunately, as yet, I don't have a long lens. Obviously the maximum I can go is 105mm, but it is something I'm thinking of considering, because yes, you can with a scene like this really sort of go in a lot tighter if you've got a telephoto lens, and then obviously pick out a lot more detail, and obviously you've got that reach, so then you've still got a lot more mist in between you and the subject to hopefully then work out to be an improved image. But yeah, that's one tip that I would say, check out his channel. I'll put a link in the description below, and yeah, once you finish watching my one, then you can go over there and watch his. Next image that I found is walking around this wooded area here. The mist has penetrated a little bit into the actual woodland, but not maybe as much as I would like, but they're the conditions and you just have to adapt to them. Anyway, obviously come across this composition here of a silver birch tree sort of creating a bit of a diagonal within the actual composition and working out really quite nice. Now this is where I was sort of talking about the need for a longer lens that I can obviously then zoom in a bit further and obviously then pick out a little bit more detail, because at the moment where obviously I'm in as far as I possibly can at 105, there's a lot more distraction around the actual image, so I'm going to probably have to crop out quite a bit. However though, there is again I believe it's probably an oak tree in there that's got a branch coming out at a horizontal, and that's kind of creating quite a nice top of the frame. Obviously I've got all of the brambles in the foreground and obviously the bottom of the image, and the main subject of obviously the silver birch tree creating that diagonal through the image. Now one thing I have done that I don't tend to do that often, but I probably should do more of, is turn the lens over to manual focus. I've got the camera set up on f4.5, and with that wide aperture I needed to make sure that I was sharp on the main subject of the silver birch tree. So zooming in on the back of the LCD screen, switching over to manual focus, and then making sure that obviously that part of the image was where the sharpness was, where the actual focus was, and then obviously taking the image. And as I say, in post-processing I'll probably obviously crop down a little bit as well, but yeah, for this type of image, working out really quite well. So I've had a really good walk around the woods here, trying to look at different, or find different compositions, should I say. I think one of my tips about woodland photography is you've got to look in every single direction. Forwards, backwards, left, right, up, down, absolutely everywhere. I've come across this scene here of two silver birches that are crossing over and working out really quite nice, because there's two other trees left and right of it that are going to act as a bit of a frame. Yes, I've obviously got a lot of green foliage in the foreground, but it's hopefully going to work out to be quite a pleasing image. Again, keeping the camera in vertical orientation just to sort of extend the height of the actual trees as well, and really keep that cross right in the centre of the composition. I may well, when I get it back to the computer, is obviously crop out a little bit of this foreground, but hey ho, that's what it is once you get back into the computer and look at it on that full sort of screen as well. But again, sort of reaching in at 105 on the lens, and I didn't see this image until I actually was walking along this path and turned myself around and saw the actual composition there. I could have easily carried on walking down and walked straight past it, but yeah, again, obviously hopefully working out really quite well. This one again, manual focus, f5, about 0.3 of a second for the shutter speed, ISO 50, and yeah, again, obviously making sure you're using a magnification on the back of the LCD screen to make sure you're as sharp where you want it in the actual image, and focusing on the tree that's closest to me of the silver birches, as yeah, hopefully will work out to be another interesting image. Maybe a bit more of a creative edit on this one as well, and darkening down the background and obviously making the actual white bark of the silver birch really sort of pop that little bit more. But yeah, good to be out, and good that I finally spotted this image. Why didn't I just turn the LCD screen in the first place? Third time lucky, hopefully. So as you saw there, had to pull a couple of branches of these young trees out of the way so I obviously can get a clear line of sight to the actual composition that I wanted. And what drew me to this composition, walking around the woodlands here, is actually a lot of the ferns here have already started to turn this lovely sort of orange and coppery colours of autumn. Everywhere else is very, very green still. But as I say, walking up this little track here, saw the composition in the background. I thought, great, need to capture that one. But obviously where the height of the tripod was, I couldn't really get where I wanted to go. I don't really like venturing too far off of the actual tracks themselves, because you don't really want to spoil any of the obviously ground underneath your foot. Okay, yes, the tripod's on there, but that's very minimal, or as minimal as I can possibly make it. As I say, I didn't want to venture any too far into it, but reaching over and pulling out those branches out of the way, not pulling them off the tree, never ever do that, but pulling them out the way were working out really quite well. And yeah, setting up for the 10-second timer just so obviously could do that. But yeah, when I finally remembered the actual LCD screen can obviously rotate, it made it framing it up and making sure that I'm not pulling the branches too far down, which I did in the first one that I took. Yeah, obviously worked out really quite well, and I think for the final image coming out really quite well. So again, obviously got the details. I'll put all the details as I normally do in the description below for the settings for this one, but this one's f5, ISO 50, lenses whatever the lens is at, and shutter speed is, yeah, well, again, whatever that is as well. So they're all incidental, to be honest, isn't it, really? Just using that exposure triangle to work out and balance the image, looking at the histogram and making sure that the camera is working as well as it can do once obviously you've set it up. But yeah, walking across this image, hopefully with the detail of the lovely colours of the ferns within the foreground, adding that little bit more rather than just green, green and a bit more green. So making it back to the car now, after a bit of a brisk walk back, but what an enjoyable shoot to be out this morning. The conditions that I had first thing with the mist and the fog, yeah, hopefully worked out really quite nice for some of the images that I've taken, and yeah, just really enjoyable just to be back in the woodland and sort of looking to hone my skills for the upcoming autumn season, which in some areas with that ferns turning obviously brown and orange, etc., is already here, but whether or not it's across the whole of the common, yeah, I don't think it is yet. Maybe just a unique little spot, that one. But one area that I will be coming back to for my woodland photography, as it is so accessible really, which is always key, isn't it? You need to pick these locations that are obviously going to provide you with countless compositions. Well, yes, this does, but also it needs to be accessible as well. And the National Trust, who own and manage this area, have an open car park here, so yeah, luckily enough you can access it at all times of the day. So yeah, really enjoyable shoot, as I say, and thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you leave us a comment, as I really do enjoy those comments. Consider giving it a thumbs up as well, and also if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And until next time, when I'm back out and about, and hopefully not as hot and sweaty as I am at the moment, but back out with my camera nevertheless, take care.